Whether it's no straws or paper straws, home composting systems, reusable shopping bags, the everyday individual, you and I, we're exhausted by the amount of small things we can do to offset climate change. And none of it seems enough to have the big enough impact that we need to right this ship. So, how can we make sense of the value our individual contributions bring to fighting climate change? That's why my guest this week is Alba Forns. She is the COO and co-founder of Climatize. Founded in 2019, Climatize is a platform enabling individuals and organizations to easily and automatically invest in the marketplace of climate projects from as little as $5. Climatize screens projects to determine their economic and technical viability, then posts them to their community of investors. It is such an innovative solution for the everyday climate-minded investor and provides incredible help to really important mid-sized projects that struggle to get traditional financing. Alba will talk to us about that more in a bit. I am so excited, but first, welcome to this week's episode of Make Sense, a video podcast that simplifies complex issues at the intersection of tech and people. So whether you're totally hyped on artificial intelligence and ready for the robot takeover, or you want to crawl into a cave, join a hippie commune after deleting all of your social media accounts, I'm here with my guests to help make sense of what's going on so we can all design ourselves into future make better choices. My name is Lindsay. I'm a product market fit strategist, innovation consultant, and venture fundraising advisor. If you're new here, subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So let's make sense of our individual contributions and what they bring to fighting climate change. Alba, how are you?
Hi, Lindsay. I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited about this episode.
So excited, and you have a great smile, so we're going to have a good time. You are 2023 Young Energy Ambassador, and you appeared on Forbes 30 Under 30 for social impact. You also went through Techstars Boulder 2022. You're really, really busy, aren't you?
Yes, and that's a good way to put it. Actually, last week I was attending a conference in Brussels for the European Commission as a young energy ambassador. That was a great experience. But yes, if you list all of those things together, it looks like I'm pretty busy these days.
Are there any accolades that I listed or did not list that you find to be the most meaningful and rewarding?
I think you listed the most important ones, at least for now. My co-founder and I are particularly proud about the Forbes 30 Under 30. That's the very recent one. It's for social impact as well, which is very special for me. And yeah, I mean, those are the ones that I have for now, at least.
I will tell you that in my journey in the startup world, I went to Silicon Valley when I was 21, 22 with a twinkle in my eye. I had huge startup dreams. And I think one of them was hoping that I could get on a 30 under 30 list. I did not get on that list. And maybe it's because I was thinking too much about being on the list versus what it is that was going to really, really make me happy. So I am envious, but in a good way, to see someone like you make it on that list. Was that something that you had ever thought of wanting to be on?
Actually, yes. So, funnily, my co-founder and I always joked about it. We were like, well, at some point we will be on the list. But to be honest, I never expected it to be so fast.
That's
We
amazing.
are, I'm 25, my co-founder is 26. So we knew we had some time. 5 years is enough time to get in the list. But that's why it came as a big surprise for us, because we did want it at some point, but we didn't expect it to come so soon, which is always a good thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's great. Awesome. So let's get started. We'll start with our first segment, Crystal Ball. What does the future hold? This is where I call out interesting predictions for this year, and the experts, my guests, they tell us their hot take. I'm going to pitch you some headlines and trends. And Alba, I want you to say, yes, I want that to happen, or yes, I know that is happening, or no, I don't want that to happen, or no, that's just not happening as quick as we might think. Stuff a lot like that. We want to hear kind of, the media gets so ahead of what's actually happening, and we want to know what's real and what's not real. So let's start with some climate trend. Using the sea to power electronics. So there's a global shortage of minerals needed for electrical vehicle batteries, and we need to harvest minerals from the ocean, but also the power of the wind and ocean out there for electricity. What do you know? Is this happening? Is people exploring this?
Yes, this is definitely happening and it is very necessary. I'm no expert though when it comes to marine technology, but yes, please, we need every solution for fighting climate change. So I'm all in for this.
Yeah, and I think we are seeing some limitations in lithium batteries and their ability to store energy that we collect from solar and green energy, wind, whatever. So we need to find other minerals that can help us in getting these batteries up and running, and servicing or meeting our needs. Right. I'm definitely going to be bringing on someone who works in the energy space and utilities, because this is a growing topic that is coming up on the show. But also, if you follow me on LinkedIn, I asked a question in June, what do people want to learn about? And this is definitely high up on the list of what is interesting. So, next headline, Alba: cities leveraging technology to beat the heat. So 70% of world population will be living in cities by 2050, and urban centers will have to double down on keeping everyone cool. Public fountains, trees, awnings, and real-time data, solar paint technologies. What do you know? Did you learn anything last week about what cities are doing to beat the heat?
First of all, I will say that it is extremely warm. So it is necessary. I don't know about where you are based, but lately it's just been impossible. I'm a runner. I try to go running every single day, and it's just so warm that it's impossible to go outside. So it will be necessary. I do think that we need to focus on energy efficiency though as well, because when it comes to beating the heat, we also need to be mindful of our consumption, and by having more energy efficient buildings, it's just a way to ensure that the temperature is, again, a reasonable temperature where we can go on with our daily lives, but at the same time that we're not consuming too much energy to do so.
Yeah. So would this be, and tell me if I have this right, when you are in really dense parts of cities, like it's often hotter, not just because the buildings are blocking maybe the wind from the outside, but because some of the buildings are old or using old systems, they're just giving off a lot more heat than they should. Is that kind of what you're talking about too when it comes to energy efficiency?
Yeah, when I was talking about energy efficiency, I really meant it more when you're actually inside of the building. So
Got it.
when you're at home or in your office building, because in the end, that's where really you go on with your activities. When it comes to outside, being outside the building, being on the streets, for instance, I do think that a great solution is as simple as adding more trees. They
Yeah.
create shade. Obviously, it's way nicer to walk around a city that has a lot of green. And again, I'm not an expert on this, but I do think that just adding green spaces to cities just creates again a temperature that's a little bit more bearable because of the shade, and also again it's just a nicer city to live in
Right.
if there's more green
Right.
spaces.
But we need to do more than just putting up tree cover. We need to look at the building's use of energy too, right?
Exactly.
Old, outdated light bulbs. We're trying to replace them with LEDs. LEDs are more energy efficient. They give off less heat, and the existing light bulbs that a lot of indoor farms, for instance, use are um, they're so cheap to get started, but they use so much more energy and give off heat too. So I do know that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And things as easy as closing windows. The other day I went to a meeting and surprisingly they had the AC on and all the windows open. So things like these we can just get started with them today. They seem pretty obvious, but then you go to places and things still happen. Or yeah, replacing your windows, just making sure that buildings are insulated. So again, if we have, like air conditioning on or a heating system, we're just being very energy efficient.
Yes. Great. Okay. So the next one is uh, fintech. Fintech's rapid regeneration. So fintech startups are facing some rocky market conditions right now. I mean, all startups are, but fintech particularly. And many are adapting by expanding into new spaces like catering to enterprise. So you have a fintech solution. It is largely B2C to individual investors. What kind of pressure are you facing in that as a fintech startup? Do you see a lot of fintech startups having to switch their business models right now because of the market conditions?
Definitely, the market conditions are not easy right now for fintech founders or any kind of founder in general, especially if not only in the fintech space, but if you're B2C, it's just a scary place to be. But for now, we don't have plans to shift. We are a marketplace, so we do have a B2B and a B2C side at the same time. But we're just open to continuing in that space because we do think it is necessary. But obviously, when you're fundraising, when you're talking to investors, B2B SaaS tends to be the go-to for many. But I also think there's beauty in, going for hard markets and going for it anyway. So for now, we're staying strong where we are. We're doing great. But I do know that some founders had to make the decision to pivot, which is also okay. So yes, definitely
Yeah.
there's been a change and there's a lot of people moving to B2B and fintech.
Yeah. We could have a whole nother conversation about how user acquisition for B2C is very challenging, and I don't blame you. It is scary. You need thousands and thousands and thousands of users, and some days it feels like you're begging one to join at a time. So I totally get that. I'll put a pin in that one. So virtual power plants. This is the last one. I'm trying to make sense of this. So renewable energy sources like wind farms and solar panels really rely on weather conditions, which cause a lot of variability in our supply. On top of that, our traditional grids are having reliability issues. Hello, Texas, for anyone in America or abroad that has heard about these brown and blackouts. So the idea is that we would use virtual power plants, decentralizing where we get our energy across a variety of suppliers, including the renewable energy sources and the traditional energy sources. Do you see projects like this?
Yes, for sure. And I also am a huge fan and I advocate for a decentralized model. So that's very, very necessary. We really need to think about the energy transition as obviously, decarbonized, but decentralized as well. So again, like we can ensure that we can fight those reliability issues and that we don't have to face blackouts
Yeah.
from now on.
Yeah. For anyone listening to just the audio, Alba had just like a shoulder shrug, like, duh, virtual power plants. They're coming. And I believe this too, again, going back to the battery storage problem. I have solar panels on my house. At a certain point, I don't yet have battery to store that energy on my side. It just goes right, whatever extra goes right back into the grid. But cities and energy utilities are limited in how much they can expand the actual grid at this point. So they do need to look at other ways to, again, decentralize and store energy in different places. So awesome. I'm excited for that to come to reality as well. So now that we've done, a nice climate and fintech warm up, let's move into our second segment, Alba, deep dive. In this segment, we get into all the details about a specific technology's implications for everyday people. So this is your opportunity to tell us about the genesis of Climatize. What unique experience in your life led you to commit to such an audacious vision?
Sure. It actually dates back to 2019. So it's been a while. I was in Europe with my co-founder, and we attended the global climate strike that was organized by a group called Fridays for Future. So we went to the strike and we saw 100,000 people protesting for climate action. So you can imagine that gave us huge hope, motivation, but at the same time sadness, because we knew that the next day we would all go home and nothing would be different. And it cannot be that the only thing that you can do as an individual is make a cardboard sign. So we sat down, we started thinking into ways in which we could convert all of that collective energy into tangible climate action. And that was really the catalytic moment of us coming up with the idea of what Climatize is today. So basically a way of enabling everyone to invest in renewable energy projects from as little as their spare change. And the reason why I say invest is because when you think about the energy transition, it is actually a huge investment opportunity. But when we talk to the individuals, we always are framing this around sacrifice. So change your diet, travel in a more sustainable way, and make a lot of compromises, which, to be honest, I do all of them. But that we need to see beyond that, because again, it is also an opportunity, and we really want to enable everyday people to feel empowered to, again, invest and potentially make returns from investing in renewable energy projects.
I like the word you use, empower, feel empowered, and the way you framed that a lot of the actions individuals take to help fight climate change are kind of negative, right? You have to, behavior change is really hard, right? Remembering to bring reusable bags, remembering to bring your own silverware, your own straws, trying to buy in bulk instead of all these plastic containers. It's a lot of effort without any immediate satisfaction or gratification or immediate, positive reinforcement. Whereas investing in something, and one doesn't require too much of a habit change because most of us are hopefully saving some money and putting money towards investments, but also there's a positive to it, right? You get to kind of see that project take off. You get to join a community and explain kind of the financials of it. You do eventually get a return, right?
Exactly. So when you're investing, and also something that's important to mention here is that investing, it can seem easy for many, but it's actually hard to get started. So we're trying to make it super easy. So you download the app and you can invest again from very little dollar amounts, just because we want to make it easy. We want to remove the barriers to entry. And the financials behind it is basically you select a project and you actually have access to all of the information. So there is the document that compiles all of our research, all of our diligence on that project, and that enables you to make the decision of whether you want to invest or not. And then after you make the investment, you can, again, potentially earn a return. The information is in the project financials. But speaking to one of the projects that we just launched very, very recently that has already been fully funded, it was an 8% annual interest for 5 years, and you would earn interest during those 5 years and the full principal at the end of year 5. So it just varies a little bit from project to project, but that's an example that maybe helps give some clarity around what to expect.
How does Climatize differ from, Kiva? Kiva's been around for a really long time. Uh, Investors make a loan. That loan eventually gets paid back. Hopefully there's some return there. How does Climatize compare and contrast to Kiva?
Sure. So we only focus on climate projects. And from what I understand, I've never used Kiva before, but I know my co-founder is a huge fan. At Kiva, correct me if I'm wrong, you're lending the money and then that money is being recycled, right? So you potentially earn a return and then that money goes and is reinvested somewhere else. So another entrepreneur can make use of that money, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So in our case, you're cashing out that money quicker and it's not being reinvested. So you're investing in a project in particular, and then you would get your interest. And whenever the project, you've reached the maturity date, you get your principal and your interest back.
Okay.
If you want, you can always reinvest it, which is always a good thing since, like you're kind of like still
Mm-hmm.
continuing that cycle of impact, but you're cashing out the money.
Now, what kind of returns can people expect?
Actually, it varies a lot. We are the marketplace, so we're not the ones imposing the returns. However, our projects tend to range between 6 and 14%.
Okay. So is that how much your loans to the projects are charging?
Exactly. That's what you would get as an investor. So if you were to invest, you would get between 6 to 14% annually. Obviously, depending on the project, there's a fixed
Got it.
rate. So you sign up to a project, it's 10%, you're going to get that 10% annually.
Cool. So it's almost like a CD, right? You put your money in, you wait a really long time, and then that money comes back, and there's like a fixed interest rate. So it seems not risky. Are you guys FDIC insured?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Cool. And so tell us about the projects besides them being climate oriented, renewable energy type projects. What else makes these projects unique that they would work with you for funding versus traditional sources?
Sure. So first, there's the lack of funding when it comes to the energy transition, and especially when we're talking about small to medium scale CNI projects, so commercial and industrial. The reason being, banks normally don't provide loans to smaller projects just because it doesn't really make sense for them in terms of time investment and again, the return on it.
Even like local community banks and credit unions, they don't address those small to mid-sized projects.
Obviously there's credit unions that do support some kind of projects as well, but again, like the projects that I am actually talking about, they're very, very small. So a credit union, for instance, can invest in a portfolio that's under $25 million. A larger bank probably only looks at projects or like portfolios that are in aggregate over $100 million.
Got
But
it.
we are really going to very small. So our first project, for instance, was 500,000. Our sweet spot is between 25 million. And the reason why we're selecting those small projects is because they're also very community focused. The smaller the project, the more community engagement it usually has. So that's why we really want to focus on those smaller projects. And with crowdfunding, you're also enabling everyone to participate again from as little as $5 to up to whatever amount you want to invest, depending on if you're a retail or accredited investor. But by enabling project developers to raise from the community, they can also fight the NIMBY effect and
Mm-hmm.
also get their community to feel ownership and participate in that project as well.
I love that. So when you launch a new project, do you work with that project team to introduce Climatize to their community to get them involved in the funding process?
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly what we do. So the first project that we had was a community solar for low-income families in Massachusetts. The next two that we have are one of them is for a Shakespeare theater in New Jersey, and the other one is for a congregation in New Jersey as well. So as you can see, they're really tied to organizations directly who are interested in supporting those projects as well. And the good thing as well, you were mentioning about the types of projects They're all renewable energy projects, but we always try to match it with social impact as well. So this first one, for instance, that was for low income families, subscribers get a 50% reduction on their electricity bill. So that is
Okay.
already helping low income families access cheaper electricity and cleaner energy as well.
That's really awesome. How do these projects learn about you? How do you find them and how do they learn about you?
Sure. I mean, there's many different ways in which we can connect. There's a lot of inbound that we have been having throughout these last years, but we also have a partnership with the U.S. Department of Energy. It
Great.
is called National Community Solar Partnership. We've been part of that for the last 2 years. I was part of a working group that was called the Lenders Working Group,
That's
together
awesome.
with other financiers. We worked on a due diligence process that is standardized, that also helps developers know what to expect when they are trying to raise money for those projects, because that's also challenging. There's not a set in stone, form or an application that you can go and ask for money. It's kind of like one-to-one basis. And by using this diligence process that is standardized, that has been reviewed by the Department of Energy, it's also easier for those project developers to raise money. So there's a lot of connections that we have been making through this amazing partnership.
So, do you have more projects than you can service right now?
Way more projects than we can service. So we started looking for projects, sourcing projects, and we actually have our pipeline pretty much covered for the next 5 years. We signed 15 letters of intent with project developers, and if we count how many potential projects that can be, it actually amounts to $2 billion worth of renewable energy projects. So when it comes to projects, we have
Wow.
projects that need financing, and that really speaks to the need in the market of
Yeah.
really addressing these small and medium sized projects.
My startup coach helmet is going on because I'm wondering how you qualify and filter through that pipeline to determine which projects you want to prioritize. And I imagine right now you have certain qualifiers around, again, renewable energy and the um, social impact and community uh, element. Are there any other things that are emerging as qualifiers that make you want to really move quickly on a project that comes in or that's sitting in your pipeline?
Definitely. First of all, I just want to be very clear with this. We always have the best interest of our investors in mind. So when we diligence a project, we really make sure that it is a safe project, that it is a worthwhile investment opportunity. So there's different things that we look at. First of all, it's the team behind the project as well. So the same way that when a VC invests in a startup and they talk to the founders, this is the same process. We talk to the project developers, ensure they have a strong track record, look at their past projects. So we really want to make sure that that project developer has experience and again has had a lot of success
Right.
stories in the past 5 years. And then aside from that, we also look at the project stage. I don't know if you're very familiar with project finance, but I can kind of like cover it quickly for
This is makes
um,
sense. So please make sense of renewable energy project financing for all of us, please.
perfect. Yes, I will cover it kind of quickly, but I will make sure it makes sense for everyone. Basically, there's three main stages. So there's the development stage where there's basically no project. You're looking at the permitting, the interconnection. You're just making sure that the site is also appropriate. So it's basically everything that you have to do behind the scenes until you decide, yes, let's go for this project. That's a very high risk space because maybe the decision after carrying out that investigation is, well, this is not something that we want to go for, right? And then there's no way to get your
Mhm.
money back. So that's the development stage. Obviously high risk, but then there is a high reward to it as well. Construction is when you've gone through development and you actually want to proceed and make that project a reality. So you get your contractors, you start developing, and then you build the project. And then there's the operational phase. So the project is already operating, but during, let's say, a 15-year PPA, there is the O&M and just, like making sure that the project is
What
working.
is O&M?
Yeah, so it's basically when the project developer comes and makes sure that maintenance is working well. It's operations and maintenance, so that the project is functioning well. If something happens with a panel, they replace it. I'm talking about solar, but this can apply to other technologies as well. So it's just again making sure that during those 15 years, if anything happens, that you're there to support the project.
So is that where you're investing, is the operational and maintenance phase? The thing is already built.
Exactly. So we provide generally bridge loans in between construction and the operational phase. So that means that the project has substantially reduced its risk because the project is already there. And basically, it is a way to reimburse the development and the construction that investors and then move into the operations of the project. This is an example. So as a platform, we could enter at the development stage, we could enter in the construction phase. So we're really flexible, but we found this to be a great sweet spot because the risk profile is again pretty attractive and the returns are also still pretty competitive.
And when you say risk profile, you mean it's the most de-risked of the stages, and that means that you can say to your community of individual investors that this is a pretty safe investment, right?
Exactly.
It's not totally guaranteed returns, but
Yeah.
it's close. Yeah,
So,
it's close.
I mean, in the end, when we talk about investment, it's important. I just want to, really make sure that everyone understands that it is an investment. You lose your money. You
Of
need
course.
to do your own research and make sure that you can lose that money without compromising yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at project finance, it is a very safe space if you compare it to the development stage of the projects. And with project developers, you can also make sure that if they have a very good track record, some of them have a 95% hit rate in development. So I say it's high risk because I'm comparing it, but obviously doing your research and diligence, you can decrease that risk pretty substantially, actually.
I imagine eventually when you have a larger community of investors, what they look for in and what excites them will start to inform your pipeline and which projects you pull up and prioritize. It seems like it's probably too early. You only launched 5, 6 weeks ago now at this point.
Yes,
Yeah.
we were pretty early, but we've been getting a ton of feedback, and actually, I'm pretty grateful to all of our investors just because they've been very active in reaching out and providing insights about their experience, what they liked, what could be improved. And I would say one of the things that we've seen be the most attractive is impact matches returns and a term that they feel comfortable with. But many of those investors really looked or are looking for transparency and making sure that their money is going to something they believe in, that it is aligned with their values. So because we're providing so much transparency and the impact of the project is there, there's a lot of investors who feel very comfortable in making a commitment because that's what they're looking for.
So, how many individual investors? Again, with my startup hat on, I think how many user accounts do you have versus how many have made investments at this point?
Sure. We only had one project. So, I mean, this is our first project. We're launching the next two. Probably when this episode is released, we already have some new projects out there. We've had roughly 50 investors for this first project. And we've seen people actually invest substantially more than what we initially anticipated. And well, we've seen it gone pretty well. One of the things that we were surprised about with the launch is that normally when you put a project out there, the raises last 90 days. And this project was funded in less than 30. That's the reason why we still don't have a second project up, just because it was funded so quickly
You weren't
that it just
expecting it to be so quick.
we don't have the time to put up the next two, but the two next two are pretty much ready to go at this point. So
Well, we can be strategic about when we release this podcast to make sure that everyone that is listening has a few projects or two projects to pick from. So we can work on that. Okay, because like now I would just want to ask, what tell me what I do. I put a note. Download Climatize. Uh, I download the app. Just take me through the first couple steps. It's always good for new users to know what to expect. Do I have to create an account right away? Do I get to look at the project before I create an account? Tell me what the steps are to getting set up.
sure. So you download the app, and after downloading, you can directly browse the projects. You don't have to create an account. We think that that's, again, very important. We don't want to make anyone go through the onboarding flow if they don't want to make an investment. So you
Good
can browse
idea.
the projects, select the one that you want to invest in, and learn more. And inside the project page, there's different information. So you can learn about the goal of the project. You can see who the team behind it is. Obviously, the financials. There's pictures, there's videos, social media accounts of the developers. And then one of the pieces of that project page that I really like is the discussion channel. So again, when I say transparency and trust is important for us, it's just truly important. And it's the channel where you can actually make questions and ask questions to the developers directly. So you don't need to ask Climatize. You can directly talk to the project developers, post a question, and they will get back to you with their answer. So it's a way of connecting those investors with the actual project as well. And
That's
then once you've decided to make an investment, you can just hit invest, then you go through the onboarding, and you will receive an email with confirmation of your investment. And that's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple app. We just want to make it easy and again, automatic, fast for those of you who are interested in
It
making an investment.
sounds so exciting. My brain is tickling with ideas, but I do not want to sidetrack this conversation. So I'm going to keep them to myself and maybe write them on a piece of paper and slip them to you afterwards. I can't help myself. All of that is so awesome. And I am in awe of you. So I want to move into our final segment. Who needs a safety net? In this segment, I ask my guests to share the risks, failures, learning lessons of entrepreneurship and creating their path into the future. Alba, I want to start with something we both have in common. We're both, unfortunately, still somewhat of an anomaly as women with engineering degrees. What made you decide to take that leap to study engineering in college?
Sure. Yes, I mean, it is undoubtedly a male-dominated industry. And the first thing that they told me when I said I want to be an engineer was, "Are you sure?" So that was something that they didn't ask my male colleagues. And the reason why I decided to study engineering is actually because I love to challenge myself. So I love challenges. I love things that are hard. And I knew that engineering was known to be a hard degree. So that's why I went for it. I obviously loved physics. I loved math. I was fairly good at it as well. But the challenge was what made me go for it. And a way of really making this better for women is increasing the representation. I know it's tough, but like for me, it wasn't a deterrent to know that it was a male dominated industry. It wasn't a problem, but I know that there's a lot of women who are considering studying engineering or other STEM careers that just decide not to go for it because, again, there's a lack of representation. and it's also scary, and you're also not encouraged to go for it. So I just think we need to start super early. We need to educate girls, educate boys, show them that there is no such thing as, gender roles, and that they should be free to choose their own career path regardless of their gender.
So now I think about this sometimes. Did you have a man in your life that studied engineering?
My dad did, yes.
Okay, so my dad studied engineering too. I don't know where I heard this statistic or whatever, but it was something like 95% of women that study engineering have a man in their life, a brother, a father that also studied engineering. And it goes back to what you said is you can't be what you can't see. Right, representation does matter, and so for those of us women that had dads or brothers that studied engineering, we could see it, and because we share other personality characteristics with them and we enjoy probably some of the similar hobbies, we realize that this is something that we can do too. And I don't know about you, but my dad was so proud of me studying engineering. It made him incredibly happy that I did that. So it was very encouraging. There were about, in my engineering major, systems and information engineering, we had about a third of my class was women. But when I look at a lot of their LinkedIns, very few of them are working in technology anymore. Very few actually went into engineering fields. So, where did you start your career? Were you planning to go into engineering before Climatize?
I actually was pretty sure. I mean, I didn't really have the chance to think about it enough, but I was 100% sure it would be something related to renewable energy. So I didn't know if it would be very technical or not that technical, but at least the field was there. And I did two master's degrees. So one of them was in renewable energy engineering and the other one in sustainable energy technologies. But yeah, I didn't have really the time to think if I wanted to get into the tech side of things. I would be open to it. I don't have any strong no's for it, but I do enjoy my work role as a founder. And I have to say I'm also really related with the energy project. So I'm the one who's really sourcing, diligencing the projects and the companies. So I would say it's the most technical role that we have
Right. So
right now.
you're absolutely using your engineering degree. And when I say technical, I just mean broadly use it. I should just say using your engineering degree in a technology or engineering related industry, which you are in. So what's been your experience as a woman in engineering? And I hate that question because you don't know what any other experience is, right? Right, but are people surprised when you tell them that you studied engineering, when you talk to maybe some older men behind these big projects? Do you have to pause them and let them know what your background is so that you guys can speak on a more intelligent level?
It does happen a lot. So there's a lot of meetings that I have where the other person doesn't realize that I totally know what we're talking about. So they give me they try to explain every single step. And then I'm like, oh, no need. Like I know exactly what we're talking about. So it does happen. And I'm just open about my background so they know exactly why I'm there. And again, I don't blame them. I actually appreciate that they, like are open and go through the steps. But yes, obviously that comes from a position of, well, they don't know exactly what my background is. And if someone needs to take an educated guess, the majority of people wouldn't say I'm an engineer. And I'm telling you because I've tried many times when I meet someone and they ask me, what do you do or what's your background? My answer is always guess. And the only person that ever said you're an engineer was a colleague of mine in university. I didn't know we studied together, but I made the question.
So he kind of cheated. He knew.
He's like, engineering. And I was like, wow, you're the first person who ever, like guessed this. And he was like, well, Alba, I've actually seen you in university. So
Yeah.
that was like, oh.
It's really funny. I think, sometimes in the world of just, women's rights and feminism, we talk a lot about mansplaining and how some men kind of overstep to explain too much, even when it's, clear that the woman has those credentials. But I appreciate what you said, because I have always felt like I'm not offended when someone super technical is trying to explain something to me. And I've always felt comfortable saying, hey, if it makes it easier on you, I took my, 101 and 201 computer science classes. Like, I took database management. We can talk, and you don't have to worry about trying to explain all this stuff to me. I never really saw it as offensive, right? It's just that I know that people are not going to assume that I have, 6 years of engineering and technology education under my belt. So I appreciate that. It seems like that's your attitude too. And I usually insert it in there because I don't want to listen to them explain something I already know. I'm like, let's get to the point here.
But I always come from an opinion of, like people have their best interest, like best intentions. I don't judge people right away. So if someone tries to explain something to me, I would never get offended. Then I say, hey, I actually know what you're talking about. And then if that person continues with a mansplaining, maybe then I'm not as, maybe then I'm not as understanding. But I do think that, again, giving people the information that you're studying a certain thing or not is helpful.
For sure. Well, Alba, you definitely know what you are talking about. This has been such a great conversation. Let's make it make sense. How can we make sense of the value of our individual contributions, bring to the fight against climate change? A ton of value, but Climatize is giving us another opportunity that is more positive oriented, right? It's not just about sacrifices, it's about putting your money towards really valuable projects and potentially seeing a return. It is an investment, so you should only invest what you feel comfortable investing. I learned that, Alba. I heard you say it a few times.
Perfect.
Thank you for listening to Make Sense with me, your host, Lindsay Tabus, and guest, Alba Forns. We hope you enjoyed our take on climate change, climate projects, and investing. Alba, where can people find you online?
LinkedIn is the easiest, probably. I tend to be pretty active there, so please LinkedIn, and then you can also find Climatize there. That's probably our most active channel right now.
Where'd you say? Is the climatize.earth is your website, and you can
Yes.
download the app. Are you on Instagram, TikTok? Where are you guys posting content?
Everywhere, but yes, if you go to the website, all of our social media accounts are there. But I would say we're the most active on LinkedIn and Instagram, and our name is Climatize on LinkedIn and Instagram. I think it's Climatize_Earth.
Okay. All right. Well, final note, if you want to continue to be the smartest person in the room, obviously make sure you're getting notified when each episode hits. On YouTube, smash that subscribe for next week's episode. And for audio only, follow wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you, Alba, for joining me.
Thank you.